Hello business technology students, and welcome to video 5 where we're going to be talking about Xero, a competitor to MYOB. In the last two videos we have been working in MYOB Account Write Plus version 19 to do some computerized accounting. For today we're going to talk about transferability of those skills. We're going to compare MYOB and Xero, and this comparison, by the way, can extend to other products. So Reckon or QuickBooks, plenty of different computerized accounting packages out there. And the great thing about it is transferability of your skills. It's extremely easy to do. So once you know how to spend money in MYOB, you can find a similar button in Xero or in Reckon or QuickBooks, and the knowledge is all there still. So that's why we spend most of the semester working in one or two programs. There's no need to teach you every single one. We're going to go through some of the major differences though between the two largest products, MYOB and Xero, advantages and disadvantages of each, and of course we might as well cover this last one straight away. The advantages of being adept, or at least have taught yourself the basics of multiple systems, is no matter which place you work, you're going to be familiar with their software package. Pretty well every software package has a trial in place, MYOB and Xero included. So you can download whatever you're interested in, have a play around in it, and find those basic functions. So here I am, I have set up a demo company in Xero. And just for a brief overview, the first thing I want you to notice is I am not in a program. Well, I mean, I'm in a program, but I'm not in a Xero program. I've just opened my web browser, and I've gone to Xero.com. So there's one major difference straight away between MYOB Account Write Plus version 19 and Xero. It's in the browser. So no matter where you are, what device you're using, if you have a web browser, you can access your accounts. Now there are advantages and disadvantages to that. You're going to need an active internet connection. The data is stored on Xero's servers, so you are kind of relying on their security. Although, to be honest, I'd probably rather rely on their security than most small businesses who don't know a thing about security. Now, where MYOB has a command center, here's MYOB here, it has a splash screen with different command centers across the top here. Xero has a dashboard which shows you at a glance what Xero believes to be the most important parts of your business. And this dashboard is pretty well completely customizable. You can change, if you don't like a tile, you can remove it. You can add in different tiles. If there is a particular account that you want to track, you can do that. For example, over here we're tracking inventory, some important expenses. At a glance, we can see from our customers how many overdue invoices we have. Quick way to put in new sales invoices, or for our suppliers we can do bills. Of course, the bank account is a big focus for small businesses. So Xero has highlighted that by putting it in a place of importance. We can see that at the moment we don't have a reconciled business bank account, but our savings account is reconciled. All right, and you can see a analysis of the cash flow for months. So very important cash flow for small businesses, so that's why they've done it this way. To edit the dashboard, you can click Edit Dashboard down the bottom, but I'm going to leave it like that for the moment. Now let's say we wanted to spend some money. Let's say the owner is going to withdraw from the business bank account $500. In MYOB, you know that if it's a cash transaction, you generally default to banking, and then we're going to click on Spend Money because we are spending the cash. I'm going to pay from the bank account. I'm going to leave everything pretty well the same except for the amount. The memo, I'll put drawings. And for the account, I need to choose a drawings account, which I don't have, so I'll just create that very quickly. There we go. And $500 is the amount. So, first thing that I do, and that was muscle memory, I didn't even do that intentionally just then, was recap the transaction with Control R. Or you can choose Edit Recap. And we covered that in a previous video, so go back and watch those if you don't remember. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking behind the graphical user interface. I can see the accounting effect of the transaction before I record it. This is extremely valuable. When you know the debits and credits, this is the quickest way to make sure you've put everything in the right place on this screen for your general ledger effect to be correct. So we're decreasing the bank account by 500, where we're increasing our drawings account by 500, which is a contra equity account. So that will decrease our overall equity. Yep, so that's how you do a spend money in MYOB. Now over in Xero, what we would do is we would find our bank account here, click on this little ellipsis, the 3 dots, and then choose new spend money. There's a few ways to get in there. That's just the way that I like. It does take a little while. There's a downside to having Xero based in the browser. It's very dependent on Xero servers and your own internet connection as well. Alright, now that I'm here, I can choose who it's to, the date, and pretty much all of the lines that we just saw in MYOB. There's a few differences though, so let's go ahead and put in the same transaction, $500 of owner drawings. So I'm just going to put owner here, and we won't have them as a contact. You may notice that the Xero seems a little bit slow in this browser. I'm not actually using Google Chrome, which I find tends to work best with Xero. So make sure you do use Google Chrome as a browser. That's this red, green, and yellow one down the bottom if you have the option. The total, I'm going to put $500 in. For the item, now I highly doubt we have an item set up for drawings. So I'm just going to have a quick look for anything that looks promising. Now it's mostly golf balls and things like that. So we don't have an item number, so that's okay. I'm going to leave none. That makes sense anyway. For this, I'll just put drawings as the description. That's kind of like the memo field in MYOB. I'm just going to put 1 as my quantity, and then the unit price as being 500. What that will do is it will calculate $500 as my amount. For the account, I need to choose drawings. Here is an advantage of Xero. I can search if I want to. If I knew the number, I could search by the number itself. So there's cost of goods sold, for example. But if you don't know the number, then you can just type in the name of the account. Now in MYOB, you can set it up so it can search by name instead of number, but it can't do both at the same time. Alright, so owner A drawings is the one I'm looking for. This will be BAS excluded. We're not going to include this drawings on our BAS, and that's by default. That account's been set up that way, so that's good. And $500 is my amount. Now, what is the journal entry that's happening behind the scenes? Normally in MYOB, what would you do? You would press Control R, you would do a recap, and then you would be able to see it. That is not a possibility here. So Xero doesn't have that as a feature. You can't recap a transaction. So personally, I find that to be quite a disadvantage, particularly from an educational perspective. I mean, this is still going to have the same general ledger effect of crediting the bank account and debiting drawings, but it's not as obvious what is happening there. They've done this because I suppose it's less intimidating. It's the same reason that you don't see debits and credits in MYOB on this screen, on your spend money screen. You don't see debits and credits here. It's less intimidating for people who don't understand them, but it would be nice to have the feature. So anyway, I'm happy with this. This is going to have the correct effect, so I'm going to click Save. Alright, and that posts to my general ledger, and same as MYOB, it is also going, so it's posting the journal, going straight to the ledger, and then I could run a report if I wanted to. Notice that down here we can see my transactions, both spend and receive from the bank account. Some of them are reconciled. The one that I just posted is not reconciled, meaning we haven't confirmed it against the bank statement yet and ticked it off. Now back on the dashboard, the next thing that I'd like to talk about is the bank reconciliation itself. So if it was time to do our bank rec, then what we would do is we would click on Reconcile 27 items, and that prepares the bank reconciliation screen. And it's going to look a bit different to what you're used to in MYOB. You have done a bank rec in MYOB, so let's go take a quick look at that one. You go to Banking and then Reconcile Accounts. Now I'll undo the last reconciliation just so that I can have a look at it. Okay, so here's the bank reconciliation in MYOB. We have deposits to the bank account, withdrawals from. Over in Xero, we have the same thing. Now, which side is the bank account, which side is Xero? Well, they give us this helpful line up the top. The left side is the bank statement, the right side is Xero. back in MYOB, we don't have that. We just have our accounts. So right side are our accounts, left side is the bank account. How do we have the bank details here? Well, what's happened is this particular business has electronically linked up their BankWest bank account to Xero, and it is downloading these transactions real time. So as soon as BankWest recognizes a transaction, it's going to download into here. Now that has obvious advantages, but I don't want to list that as something that Xero does better than MYOB, because MYOB does have that ability. You can set up bank feeds, it's called, and bank feeds are one of the the ways that technology has really sped up accounting and made it much easier in the last few years. So we will be covering this in Xero now, but don't think of it as being something that Xero does better than MYOB, because they can both do it. Alright, so let's talk about data matching, rules, and bank reconciliations when you have a bank feed like this. First thing that I'll point out is this green one up the top. We spent, according to the bank, we spent $1,181.25, and that was to Truxton for rent. Now over on the right, we actually already have that transaction in Xero, which is why it's on the match option, and it's giving us a green highlight to say, hey, I reckon this is the transaction you're looking for, and it's matched it up. All I need to do to reconcile then is click OK, and that is now reconciled. So what it's done is it has intelligently looked for the payee and also the amount, and it's matched it up for us, which is pretty useful. Now in this next one, our client has left us a comment. So they've said, this is for an old invoice. I wasn't sure where to code it. Okay, City Limousines 1002 part, so it's a part payment. Fortunately, being the computerized accounting experts that we are, we can do this for our client. So there's another advantage of having it in the browser, having multiple people being able to work on this at the same time. We can work together to reconcile the bank account. And instead of reconciling every month, you can reconcile every minute if you want to, every hour, every day, which tends to be a much better way to do it than leaving it all the way till the end of the month and potentially forgetting what transaction was what. Alright, so for this one, this was for an old invoice. I wasn't sure where to code it. I'm going to choose match because it was for an old invoice, which means we probably already have the invoice in our system. Note that it was for 1002, so let's find that. Yep, here we go, 1002, and it's a part payment. So here's $250, the invoice of $250. I'm going to tick that one because that's the part payment. It's in respect of this invoice. And then I'm going to hit split, which allows me to record a part payment of $100. We're going to have $150 remaining after the split. Okay, so City Limousines has now sent us $100. We receive $100. We've matched that against $100 of the invoice, and left owing is $150. So this is now green, which means that the bank record and our records match, and I can reconcile the transaction. Okay, next one. What's happening here? So Cooper Street Bakery, we have spent $15.75, and it's saying, do you want to apply a rule? That's interesting. We haven't talked about rules before, and rules are part of why data matching is so powerful and bookkeeping becomes much easier. So let's take a look at what the rule is. I'm going to click on Cooper Street Bakery rule, and it should take me to it so we can have a look at it. Now what this is something that will automatically occur when these conditions are met. So when you create a rule, and you do have the ability to do that, you're saving yourself future effort effectively. What's going to happen is whenever a transaction occurs, we're going to check, does the payee equal Cooper Street Bakery? Now that's a bakery that's quite near this particular business, wherever they're located. And if so, we're going to set the contact to Cooper Street Bakery. We won't have any fixed value line items because we don't always spend the same amount at Cooper Street Bakery. But for anything that we do spend, it's always on staff lunch. That's the only thing we ever buy there. So look at that. We're coding it to office expenses 453. We're putting GST on it. And then the reference we're going to leave to be done manually. It will only run on the bank account, and there's the title. So now that that's saved, anytime the payee shows up as Cooper Street Bakery, it's going to enter the transaction for us. So once I click OK, this is going to, in MyOb, this is the equivalent of going to banking, spend money, filling out this whole thing, and clicking record. I can do all of that just by clicking on OK, and that's now done. Not only has it done that, not only has it recorded spending at Cooper Street Bakery, it has then gone to reconcile accounts and it's ticked off the line. So huge time saver. These things, you can create a rule for any transaction that is repetitive. And look at this, we have a bank fee. That's the perfect target for a rule. So instead of listening to this particular suggestion, which is okay, that would probably work fine, but I could manually create it. I'm going to create a rule for bank fees. So every time it happens, every time NAB charges us a bank fee, I'm going to set the contact to be NAB. And then I'm going to ignore the fixed value on line items just in case there are different amounts for the bank fees. And I'm going to draft the transaction. Now I need a bank fees account. And you can see, similar to MyOb, we have a pattern with our account numbers. In MyOb, your cost of goods sold accounts start with a 5, whereas in Xero, they start with a 3. Your expense accounts start with a 4, and I'm looking for bank fees. All right, GST free, leave that the same. The reference, I'm happy to set, and we'll run it only on the business bank account. Just going to give the rule bank charges. That's the title, and we've saved that one down. Alright, now that I've done that, you can see that instead of the manual creation, we're just applying the rule NAB that I just created. I'm going to click OK, and that will record the spend money for me. So with rules, you can't create them for everything. For example, this deposit from one of our customers, you can't expect that to happen regularly enough that creating a rule makes sense. But for things like the 7-Eleven rule, where it's probably just fuel, but we can have a look at what that is. Clicking on view details. Yeah, it's gone to office expenses. That's alright. I'm going to save that one. And reconcile. And anytime a rule has been noticed, so there's a rule here, I can OK that one. That's it. The last one that we might be able to match easily is Gateway Motors here. We actually already put in a payment to Gateway Motors into our system. Xero has detected that the payee's correct and the amount's correct, so I just need to click OK to reconcile it. Okay. Yeah, so that was a problem. You saw that the transaction actually didn't reconcile, it came back. Whenever you're having internet issues, then you're going to have problems using your accounting system. There's a few other things you could create a rule for in this. So the parking is a recurring transaction. It'd be a good idea to make a rule for that. Lots of parking. But that's enough for reconciling for the moment. You get the idea of it and why it can be much quicker than not having data feeds and rules. Now what I'd like you to do is, for everything you know how to do in MyOb, and ideally you will have filled out your Google document, your group's Google document with your MyOb knowledge. For example, a cash payment, you know that's banking, spend money. A cash receipt, banking, receive money. A credit sale, sales, enter sales. And a credit purchases is enter purchases. Hopefully you've got those steps down in your Google document. You need to find the parallels over in Xero. It's much quicker than learning it all from scratch, and I'm sure that you'll be able to find things quite easily. For example, don't neglect to click on these ellipses, because that's where you're going to find a lot of things, particularly to do with spending and receiving cash. And then over in invoices and bills, you're going to be able to find the other ones that you're looking for. Have a click around, play around with it. The other thing I want you to locate in Xero is under accounts in MyOb, you can modify your accounts list. Have a play doing that in Xero too. See if you can find the accounts list and modify it. And finally, look for how to produce reports like a trial balance or an income statement. Alright, that'll do for an introductory video to Xero. If you have any questions, they should be solved in class when you work through an exercise. Or you're welcome to send your teacher an email.